9575. And the passcode is 741725. To join by telephone, it's 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 885-5998-9575. And the passcode is 741725. The public may also view the meeting via channel 16. We had previously given notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions has also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes are taken during the meeting should be done by roll call vote. We will start the meeting by having the clerk call the roll. And please, each member state their presence, must also state whether anyone is in the room with them during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman at Large, Shoshana Kelly.
Why'd you do me first? I'm here. I'm alone. You threw me off. And I'm practicing social distancing. I can hear everyone.
Alderman at Large, Michael O'Brien, the clerk, is present. I am alone, practicing social distancing, and I can hear the proceedings. Alderman at Large, Laurie Wilshire.
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
Thank you. Alderman Ernie Jetty has been previously excused. Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I am present, I can hear everyone, and I am alone.
Alderman at Large, Ben Clemens.
I am here, I can hear everyone, and I'm by myself.
And our chairman, Alderman Richard Dowd.
Yes, I can hear everyone, and I'm here alone, practicing social distancing under the governor's orders. Also present with us are Mayor Jim Donchis, Deputy Chief of Police Jim Testaverde, let me see, Director Sarah Marchand, Director Kim Kleiner. I think I've caught everyone. Okay. The first order of business on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from members of the public that would like to present any testimony on anything appearing before us this evening? Hearing no one. Communications.
There are none.
Thank you. Unfinished business.
There is none.
New business resolutions.
Before us this evening is R20-056, relative to the transfer of $1,445,000 from Department 194 contingency account 70112, contingency for education priorities, to various school department accounts. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay. I saw Mr. Donovan. Mr. Donovan, would you like to give us an overview?
Certainly. As you probably all recall, part of the budget process this year, we received the second year of one-time funds from the state. The total amount that the budget committee approved, which is 2.2 million. This request of 1,445,000 is a portion of that. All of the items listed here, deferred maintenance, furniture, copier down payment, etc., are all items that were in the original budget. So there's nothing new that wasn't in the budget when you basically approved the 2.2 million. I will mention that the deferred maintenance, the 460,000 that's there, when this transfer is approved, it will be put into the deferred maintenance accounts and be used strictly for that. So I think that's a quick summary. I hope most of these funds we're going to be spending in the next 30 days or so. So it would be great if this could be passed tonight. Thank you.
Yes, I've had discussions with Mr. Donovan, and he knows that the board pretty much insists that that deferred maintenance account be spent for deferred maintenance. And but they are starting to have expenses early on because of what's going on. And I feel comfortable with passing this tonight. Are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also before us this evening is R-20-057, authorizing the mayor and the city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $20 million to refund all or a portion of certain outstanding bonds of the city in order to achieve interest cost saving. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay. I don't see Treasurer Fedett on, but he and I have had a few conversations this afternoon. So basically, long and short of this motion is to save the city money. We'll be refinancing bonds that we are able to refinance in accordance with the requirements that are set forth for that action, as was explained by Attorney Bolton in the last meeting. And are there any other questions relative to this legislation? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also before us this evening is R-20-058, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the National Board of Police Commissioners and Teamsters Local 633 from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2022, and relative transfers. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion is to recommend final passage of recommend final passage of the full board of R-2058. And I would believe that Deputy Chief Testaverde is here to explain.
I am, sir. I see the mayor had his hand up. I didn't know if I wanted to go to him first.
Mayor, would you like to make an opening remark?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I thought I would take this opportunity to update you on a few financial matters and at least comment on the police contract,
Okay.
about which I've talked with the Deputy Testaverde at some length. We still are facing a lot of uncertainty and some more news that's not favorable. I don't think you've yet received the memo from CFO Griffin, but the new estimate, based upon the increased contribution rates provided by the New Hampshire retirement system, is that the retirement budget will go up next year over this year by $5.1 million. Some of that is due to of course, the increase in wages across the entire city. But 4.4 million is due, 4.4 million of that increase is due to the decision by the retirement board to impose additional costs on the cities and towns. This, as I think that goes without saying, that this is a huge hit. The last estimate was 2.5 to 3 million. Now it's up to 4.5 or 4.4. 4.4 is more than 2% on the tax rate, just on that one line item, just on that one increase. And we've talked before about some of the difficulties we're facing as a result of COVID-19 and some of the other events which have occurred. We've talked about a 7% tax rate. This makes, as a possibility, this makes that situation even more difficult. However, we are working with the Municipal Association, with our legislative delegation, to seek, at least I've talked with the senators and with the chair of the House delegation about the possibility of legislation to extend the deadline for the 2039 deadline for the accomplishment of a 100% funded situation. We've also we're working with the Municipal Association to attempt to get them to take a position in favor of some years of delay in that deadline. If we did ever achieve that, it would definitely help to mitigate against this increase. I also wanted to report to the committee concerning our efforts pursuant to requests made at least by you individually. I don't think the board has ever voted on this, but your sort of individual requests that we've tried to standardize the negotiations across the various departments. That's certainly a good idea, and I appreciate all of you who've spoken up in favor of taking that approach. Now, to do that, we need to have someone on the negotiating team in these various negotiations, which is no problem with Public Works or with the internal City Hall departments. But an issue is raised regarding the independent boards, the employer boards, because only with their consent can that occur. Now, I've talked with the PD about this, and I think the administration is favorably inclined. They do need to get the commission to go along, but at least we're trying to have positive discussions. But I have to say that the school department and the fire department are not really cooperating with that, at least so far. The fire department has declined to allow anyone from, anyone from administrative services on the negotiating team, and the school department seems to be headed in that direction. So I think I would like to work together with you, maybe not tonight, but in the future, to talk about how we can try to bring about an attempt, just someone on the negotiating team. So at least we know what's going on, and the negotiating teams can be informed of all of the issues we're concerned about at City Hall, principally the cost issue. So that's something I think we need to work on. We did get a little bit of good news, which is that we don't think that the loss in utility values is going to be quite what had been projected by the experts with respect to House Bill 700. I could explain the details, but it seems that this year we will probably have a slight increase, and therefore the 25 million or so loss that we were projecting doesn't seem like it's going to come to pass. So that's good news. And we're thinking that the tax base may grow as much as $20 million this year, which brings us maybe $400,000 to $500,000 in additional revenue. But of course, we've just talked about a $5.1 million increase in one line item. So the $400,000 or $500,000 certainly helps, but certainly doesn't offset the pension increase. I now get to the collective bargaining agreement. I have talked with the deputy at some length. I mean, he is very on top of what's going on. I have to say, I'm concerned because we keep setting a precedent that we have to change at some point, that all unions are going to get more than the cost of living for a period of some years. Now, this is only a 2-year contract. There's some good news here in that this group of employees is not on the city healthcare plan. They have their own healthcare plan through the Teamsters. So we don't need to gain the healthcare modifications that we have been talking about and seeking. But continuing to establish a precedent for 2.75% is something that we do have to change, because if we were to grant that to every union indefinitely, we would have trouble sustaining the budgets even without COVID-19, even without the pension increase. So I believe we really need to exercise caution. Now, in this case, the deputy forcefully argues that these lower level employees, it's a small group, he can tell you exactly how many, but it's a small group of civilian employees. He forcefully argues that they are paid less than the market. That is, something I think we have to listen to. If an employee group can show that they don't make what their peers make, or then with other employers, then that's certainly something we need to listen to. So I am concerned about the 2.75% precedent that we're continuing to set, but there is the facts that the Deputy Testaverde will present, that these people are lower than they should be, lower than the market, and this is a short-term contract, and it doesn't include city healthcare. So with those concerns expressed, I can't say that I'm opposed to the contract, but I just want to voice my concern going forward that we need to be careful about costs of all type, including labor agreement.
All set, Mayor?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Deputy Testaverde.
Thank you all. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with everything the mayor said. We did have a very productive, very professional conversation the other day. Obviously, at times we're looking at things from different perspectives, but there's nothing that the mayor just said that was inaccurate. I would like to highlight a couple of things that the mayor just pointed out. We listen. And when I say we, I'm representing the commission and the chief and the whole agency. So we listen. When the mayor speaks at the State of the City, when we listen to the aldermanic meetings, when we hear the healthcare costs going up, when we hear the amount of Nashwins that are out of work for COVID-19, when we hear all that the tax rate that might potentially go up next year, we listen. We're also part of the collective bargaining strategy team. So we have a seat at the table, and we are all trying, and I say the police department is in favor of meeting with the other directors across all the other divisions and representatives of City Hall to try to get more in line when we sit down at the table for collective bargaining. We are a little bit different, as you all know, working for a police commission. We're not against listening to City Hall. As a matter of fact, I'll just give you one example. Several years ago, when the now chief was negotiating the UFPO contract, one of the sticking points, in my opinion, I'm just giving you my opinion, was a sick buyout. And when that contract finally came to fruition, we sat down and said, well, the city is very passionate to stay away from this right now for very valid reasons. So moving forward in several other union negotiations that I've been part of, I want to be as fair can be, but that was one of the things I asked the other unions when I sat down at the table to stay away from, to show that we are listening to all of you at City Hall. I've said it before, and I mean it when I say it sincerely. We want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. The mayor hit it right on the head. Out of our 5 collective bargaining unions in this agency, the Teamsters, who we're speaking about tonight, is carved out of our healthcare. As far as healthcare, and I don't want to misquote Larry Boudreau, but we passionately sat down with all of our employees to explain the HMO deductible plan and the HSA plan. We personally believe that the HSA plan not only benefits our employees, but benefits the city. And if you look at the numbers and you see how many of our employees switched over this year, we were very, very impressed. And we've already made it a priority next year to get even more employees over to the HSA to benefit themselves and to benefit the city. The Teamsters are carved out. So there is a benefit already to the city. That's something I can't come to the table and I can't come to all of you and say, they were willing to give up some health care. It's just a whole different system, which doesn't hurt the city, but that's just one card I can't put down on the table. In addition to that, if you bear with me for one moment here, we roughly have 67 or 68 civilians that work at the police department. This union consists of 28 of them, just over 40%. And some of them are very easy. If I talk about the communications union, that's dispatchers and communications. It's that simple. The patrolmen's union, it's police officers, detectives. It's that simple. This union is a little bit more diverse, and I'll go down this very quickly, I promise. Custodians, fleet maintenance, which are garage mechanics, administrative assistants, that's secretaries in the Detective Bureau, professional standards, services, our booking specialists. These are civilians that book our prisoners, our records and receptionists, our finance people. These are all the men and women that work directly for Karen Smith. Our crime analyst, which I believe many, if not all of you at one point have benefited from how hard Jenny Sousa works when she's crunching our numbers, and our accreditation manager, Mr. Bill Pease, which I would hope you would agree, especially with what's going on nationwide, being an accredited law enforcement agency, being held to a higher standard, adhering to 459 best practices is the way we want to go. And we've been doing that since 1991. The average yearly salary for this union is roughly just under $42,000. The handful of employees that are above that have been here 27 to 33 years. There is roughly 7 of them that are under $40,000. So when we start to break it down, the raise that we're talking about, a 2 3/4 raise, would work out on average to be about $1,100, just over $1,100 a year, $96 a month, or $22 a week. I don't want to give you sob story after sob story, but please allow me just, one moment. These are men and women, many with families, that the union has come to me in a very professional manner and said, we don't know how much longer we can do this. They are not threatening us. They are not giving us ultimatums. They are not talking about picketing or calling in sick, nothing like that. They are consummate professionals, but they're saying they have several members that are barely scraping by. One of our a handful of our administrative assistants have 2 jobs. One in particular, I know for a fact, will not turn her heat on until the very late month of November and December, just because of finances. These are not men and women that live out of their means. When you talk about 2 3/4%, I cannot argue with what the mayor said as far as that percentage in this particular climate. But I do think it's very important to take the base salaries we're talking about, as opposed to if this was a group making $90,000, $100,000, 2 3/4% might be a little too rich in this climate. When we're talking about, again, on average, rough under $42,000, and the numbers I just cited, I don't think this is a great contract. I think it's fair, but this is nothing. If you were all generous enough to pass it and the full board were to pass this, I do not expect this union to come up to me and give me high fives because this is a great contract. I truly am afraid in years to come that we are going to lose some solid employees. And I don't say that as an idle threat. I really, really don't. It's a tough time to be a police officer. These are not police officers, but I am not overstating this. Without these men and women, we cannot do our jobs. Without Karen Smith's finance people, the lights don't go on. Without the administrative assistants, one of our administrative assistants who has been here 37 years oversees every internal affairs documentation that comes across the desk. The amount of confidentiality that we need them to have. I need a custodian that can walk in my office and see some of the most confidential items and not worry for a second that anything is going to leak out of this building. And I would like to think you would all agree with that with your own, with City Hall and your own personal occupations. But we take it very, very seriously. We take it to another level. And it is my job to advocate for these people, but these are also your people too. When you're talking about COVID that we all dealt with, our custodians had to come in. Our fleet maintenance had to come in to disinfect the cruisers. Our booking specialists had to come in to process a clientele that the odds are if someone was going to be exposed to COVID, MRSA, tuberculosis, hepatitis B, A, C, HIV. This is what they deal with on a daily basis. They signed up for this job, but it's not a lot of money. These people are not do not have timeshare condos in Aruba. And again, they have families. I would be more than happy to answer any questions. I would just like to say over the past 5 years with this union, their percentages have been, starting back in 2015, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1.5, and 2. I'm not going to look at you and say they're ridiculously low and insult any of you that might have voted in favor of them. But humbly, with the base salaries that they're making, I do think they're low. I do personally think that they are too low for this group of people. My very last comment, and then I'll entertain any questions, and I've said this to the mayor, I've said this to the other heads of other organizations in the city, and I've said it to the chief, and I will say it till the day I'm no longer a member of this agency. I do not get lost in the argument if someone comes up to me and says, this group got 3%, this group got 2.25%, this group got 2 3/4, therefore we deserve it. I've told many of our people if they would like a benefit the fire department has. I know Chief Rhodes very well. I know they're hiring. They're a wonderful agency. Go apply with them. And people laugh and chuckle when I say it, but I mean it wholeheartedly. We signed up for this job. I just want our people to make a very fair, livable wage that they can raise a family on. If the next union in this building came up to me and said, well, you gave it to the Teamsters, therefore give it to us, that argument is lost on me, 100%. I understand I might be a little bit naive with that, but I've told the mayor, I will stand side by side with him and all of you and fight any entity that says just because they got it, we deserve it. We all have different jobs. We all have different skill sets. The only 2 members of this union that haven't been here 30 years that have a higher wage, and I'm still talking under 60,000, are our accreditation manager, who has a master's degree and well over 30 years in the industry, and our crime analyst, who is required to have a master's degree. Everyone else, their salaries pale in comparison. The last thing I'll say, I apologize, I know I said that before, but you hear the day-to-day trials and tribulations of union negotiations. This union couldn't have been more professional or more easy to work with. We started seriously negotiating in January, and with COVID, here we are today. A handful of meetings. Of course they wanted more, but if you look at the summary sheet, a lot of this is just putting them in line with other unions. An extra vacation day for someone that's been here over 30 years, that's 1 employee. Extra longevity for someone that's been here over 25 years. That's 1, over 30 years, that's 1. And a couple other things are just cleaning up some language of things that have already existed here, but the contract kind of differed. I think the biggest thing we're talking about here today are the wages, and I understand the plight that we all have together. And finally, we want to be part of the solution, but I can't look these people, men and women, in the eye and tell them that 2 3/4 is too much money. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Any questions or concerns? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Deputy and the Mayor for speaking this evening. I signed up to be a co-sponsor of this because I believe that this was a fair contract. And the other thing that I was reminded of was, I believe that this bargaining unit, I think it was 2010, might have been, was when they went with the Teamsters healthcare. And I was on the board of aldermen at that time, and I remember the mayor at that time was Mayor Lozo, and I remember her threatening to veto the contract because this group was switching over from the city to the Teamsters. And I said at the time that to veto that would have been a mistake, because in the long run, this is going to save the city a lot of money, and it has. And so, you know, we're looking at here raises that are less than 3%. We're looking at a bargaining unit that long ago came up with a creative way to solve the healthcare problem basically for the city. And, you know, as the deputy has stated, these are people that we would not be able to function or have our police department function unless we had these folks every day. And I certainly appreciate that the work that they do every day, especially during these times. So with all of that said, I am, you know, going to vote in favor of this because, again, I think it's a fair contract, and it's something that, you know, they're not asking for the world here. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Alderman Wilshire.
I too feel this is a very fair contract. You know, some of these people have been in these jobs for many, many years. And if they're not making what their peers make in other industries, then maybe it's time we look at that too. But I think this is a fair contract, and I'm going to support it. Thank you, Deputy.
Anyone else that would like to speak or have a question or a comment? Seeing no one, I have, as the liaison to the police department, I have the honor and privilege to sit in with the commissioners and the chief and the deputy chiefs once a month. And I can tell you that I have been thoroughly impressed by Assistant Chief Testaverde's work with the unions and his ability to negotiate a fair and honest contract. And he and I have had many discussions, as he can probably tell you, about the things that he was testifying to, about not taking all the, you know, basing one union on the other. You have to take them one at a time, and you have to look at the fairness on each one. So I think he's done a great job in that regard for this union. And, you know, I agree with everything the mayor said, but I also agree with everything that Deputy Chief Testaverde said. And I, for one, am going to be supporting this contract. I know these people, I've met them, and they are the backbone of the police department, and fully support our officers and chiefs and deputy chief so they can do their day-to-day work, which is critically important, especially now. So with that said, if there's no other comments, will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you, Deputy Chief, and Karen Smith, who I know is also on. Mayor, would you like to say something? You're still on mute.
No, just the remaining items are going to be handled by other people, but thank you for entertaining me, and I think we just need to be very careful about our budgeting because of these, especially this impact from the pension fund. And I know you're all on board with that, but we should talk further about that in the weeks and months ahead. Thank
And
you.
I think as far as all the other unions are concerned, we need to, if we're going to formulate a plan and a posture, we need to do that before the contracts end up here. But I think in this instance, Deputy Chief Testaverde's done an excellent job of explaining to the unions what the crisis is as far as costs and everything. But on the other hand, as he explained, these people are not overpaid and they are critically important. So with that said, Alderman Clements?
Yeah, just briefly, I don't know if we've had any, I don't even know if it's possible, or if we've had any serious discussions about this or what it would entail. But I do know for a fact that our Board of Public Works pension system is far and above what the state is. And I don't know if it's possible at some point if we could switch all of our employees over to that, or if that, I mean, obviously that's a bigger discussion for tonight, but to get out of the state and to stop having the legislature be in control of the pensions and to have us be in charge of it instead, I think would be very good. And if there was a way that even if it was, whoever gets hired after a certain date is in our pension, something like that, but really just get out of the state, because you know what, for years and years and years, they don't listen to us. They don't listen to their own municipalities or the people that work there. And, if that's a viable option, I would love to explore it.
Well, I'm definitely asking the legal department to look into the mechanism that we would need to try to leave the state pension system. Now, of course, this happened 4 years ago, and we looked at it at that point. It would require a considerable amount of money. I mean, we have to come up with the unfunded liability that can be apportioned to Nashua. And I think we need a vote of the employees, but still, I agree that it's definitely worth looking into, because, as you said, the pension for public works is in much better shape than the state pension system. And certainly we need to think about whether, if we can afford it, whether we could do better just on our own.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The mayor is absolutely correct. It goes by RSA 100A, which basically said if the city was going to get out of the state-run pension plan, that all unfunded liabilities would have to be paid. And I think that would be an exorbitant amount of money. And actually, this what we're being charged with right now isn't that much of compared to a penalty in the short term as compared to coming up with the money that would need to be funded. But it definitely needs to be taken a look at. But if this is an issue, then let's make it an issue. We should be screaming from the highest mountaintop that there's an election coming up very soon with state legislators. This was created by the state legislators. I have been a state legislator for 14 years fighting this very same issue. They went from 35% down to zero. And when you go down to zero, that's not fixing the pension system. That put the onus right back to the municipalities. Well, yeah, honky-dory if you lived up in some backwoods community in the state. But if you're a city like Salem, Manchester, Nashua, you have a lot of employees tied into the state pension system. So therefore, the liability is a lot different than perhaps this, small amount of people that are tied in from, let's say, in the community of New Boston. So this needs to be more addressed. It seems like almost the public is satisfied with it, because when the people go to the polls, they got to realize who they are voting for, and people that would vote to protect the city and to help alleviate the what the pension system is downsizing right back to the local communities. And that is a major problem for all the largest cities in this state. Thank you.
You know, if we only, I like that term, if we only knew a legislator. But our current legislators do a heck of a job supporting us. And it is an issue, but I think if you launch an arrow or a spear at Concord, it won't hit anything. But if you get all the major players, the big cities together and do it as an unpartisan issue, you might make a bigger impact and say, look, you know, you're not doing any favors up there in Concord for Nashua, Manchester, Salem, and we've had it, you know. So
Well, we're seeking a vote of the Board of the Municipal Association mid-September to support an extension of the 100% deadline in order to mitigate this. Now, we will see. We'll see. But in the past, the Municipal Association hasn't taken a position on that for reasons that I frankly can't understand. But we are seeking an endorsement of the approach that I mentioned from the Municipal Association in mid-September.
okay. Anyone else on this? Let's Alderman O'Brien, the next piece of business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also before us this evening is R-20-060, relative to the approval of a purchase of one transit van from Capital Improvement Replacement Fund, SURF, during fiscal year 2021. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Yes, the motion is for final passage of R-20-060, and I would believe that that's why Director Marchand has been with us all evening. Director Marchand.
Yes, thank you for having me this evening. This is for replacement of a van that was totaled, and it was not scheduled for replacement in the SURF. We did get insurance funds towards it, but needed additional funds to meet the cost of the replacement van. This is a critical vehicle for us. We are short on vehicles, and our vans have been intensely used through COVID. And as we're coming back online, phase 3 came back out today. We're seeing our ridership pick back up, but we're rejiggering the system to be the most efficient it can be right now. So these vans are really critical.
Director Marchand, is the next piece of legislation tied to that? These money going into the SURF, so.
Yes, that is correct. That is the insurance money to cover the other part of the vehicle.
So these two pieces of legislation are tied closely together. Are there any
Correct.
questions for Director Marchand? Alderman Wiltshire.
Rejiggering? That's pretty good. I like that
Is
one.
that good? Very technical term.
Okay, anyone else? Questions or concerns or? Okay, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marchand. Alderman O'Brien, the next order of business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also before us this evening is R-20-061, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $63,865 of unanticipated revenue into Fund Number 7026, Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
The motion is to recommend final passage of the full board of R-20-061. This motion is to take the unanticipated revenue and apply it to SURF so that what we just voted on in our 20060 can be paid for. Any questions or concerns on that motion? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries.
Motion carried. Okay, new business ordinances?
There are none.
Okay. I don't believe we have anything that we're going to be taking off the table this evening. Some of Alderman Clemmons?
I understand we're not taking it off the table, but I did have a question of when we would be discussing again our 2028 with the Economic Development Director. I know that we put it on the table to kind of mull over the conversation that we had last time, but I'm wondering when the committee can expect to take final action on that.
Director Marchand, do you have a? I know the other director isn't here, but
No, he is not here tonight. I do know that they are actively working on this, and you should have an update coming very soon. I would assume definitely for your next meeting, but there is nothing tonight.
I did have a conversation with Director Cummings this afternoon, and he's working on a couple of things that he wants to get lined up before he comes back on this particular motion. So I would assume probably at our next meeting. It depends how the other things go.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Director Marchand?
It will be packaged with the TIF legislation and some of the other pieces. And so since there are 3 rather large pieces of legislation all bundled together, he will present the whole package to you at once.
And by the way, I love those colored charts that you use for city business behind you.
Oh, my kids' wonderful drawings. Homeschooling.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. So nothing off the table. General discussion. No one? Okay. Public comment. Is there anyone online that would like to speak to public input? Hearing and seeing no one. Moving on. Remarks by Alderman. Okay. We don't need a non-public. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Okay, the motion is to adjourn. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes. We're
Mr.
adjourned at
Chairman, 6
8:21
yeas, 0
PM.
nays. Motion carries. Thank you.
Motion carries, yes.